Today is May 19, Monday morning, and we are back out in this field collecting slugs. This is a field of late terminated vetch cover crop. Farmer sprayed it this morning. He was concerned about some cutworm potential. Anytime we have a late terminated cover crop, we've got the potential for added complexity in the system. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It just means that we've got to be mindful of certain things that we don't have to worry about quite as much with a more clean, conventionally planted field. So it's just cover crops add complexity to the system. But the purpose of this little clip right now is I wanted to show you what cutworm damage is not. This here looks like cutworm, but it's actually bird damage. So right here, we've got the hole where the seedling was, and the seedling. Let's try to get that in focus. There we go. We've got this kind of a jagged hole with a couple of straight sides as that beak went into the soil, pulled the seedling out, and came up with the seed. So this one here, you can see where that seed was in the hole. The bird plucked that right out of the ground and ate it. Now this one here, this one looks more like cutworm, but it's hard to tell because like I said, we've got some bird activity. So there's the plant. It'll eventually outgrow that. The growing point is still at the ground. If that was a bird, it didn't make a hole, didn't pull the plant up. So that tells me that this might have been cutworm. So just a couple things to look for. You see holes where the plant was with straight sides in a line. I mean, you can see this is, one plant, 2 plants, 3 plants, 4 plants, 5 plants, 6 plants. Just in a perfect line like this. Boom, 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 boom. That's classic bird going right down the rows. And there's a lot of blackbird activity in this field too. So I thought that was interesting. Something to keep in mind. Looks similar to cutworm. Very different remedies. Last year, this was a great squash vine borer trial. Lots of zucchini bread came out of it. Lots of vine borers came out of it. I've gradually built up a good vine borer population at this spot over the years. So we're going to test out Coragen as a drench, a couple of Coragen sprays, and a new product that is going to be labeled for cucurbits, but not necessarily for vine borer. I want to find out if it works for vine borer. What'd you find? What is it?
I don't know. It's a white grub.
White grub. Ooh, it is a white grub. And it is not Oriental beetle, the Asiatic garden beetle. Yeah. They have jowls. You know how you tell white grubs apart? You got to look at their abdominal hairs on their last segment. They call it a raster pattern. And the solution to any successful planting, Miracle Grow. Lots of it. Thank you, Jace. We will dig this up in about a month and a half. We're collecting cucumber beetles on a very cold and wet, soggy day, as you can see. Not too far from Salisbury. And we've got a block of watermelons that have just been transplanted and a block of watermelons that are starting to run. And we are finding beetles on this older block. I want to point out a couple things. Oh, what is this? Got something else going on this leaf, I think. Nope. This looks kind of like, but not exactly like, spider mite feeding. Well, I was going to go back to the RAV and get the dead cat microphone so this sounded better, but half an hour later the rain has only gotten harder, and now our torsos are dry but our pants are soaked to the bone. So we're just going to head out. But we collected 280-ish, almost 300 beetles from this little piece here. We're probably averaging about 2 beetles a plant, pretty close to thereabouts. There's one right tucked in there. You can see the shredding on the edges of the leaves. What's more concerning is when they start feeding on the stems, make the stems brittle in spots. They don't transmit diseases to watermelons like they do in cantaloupe, so that's good. And in our favor, why we were able to collect as many as we did quickly, not only are they abundant, but they're also wet and cold just like we are. So they're not flying away. They just kind of sit there and let us move them, and then they don't move off of our fingertips. So we can get 4 or 5 beetles on a finger and then plunk it into the cage that Irene is holding. Thank you, Irene. We will be doing some vial tests with these hopefully this week. Product got shipped, just waiting on it, and we'll make a video of that process when we start it. Stand. And I wanted to point out a few things about this. First, he's tilled up kind of the headland here where the grain carts would have gone. And the stand is pretty. We've got 30-inch rows on the soybeans. We've got a handful of plants that have seedcorn maggot injury, but not too many. Right here, Ben, can you get the phone up? This plant here is wilting. It's just lying on the soil. And if we pull that up, we take a look at it, the stem is shredded underground. It's turned black. Seedcorn maggot and different seedling diseases are classic causes for that. And trying to germinate with this cold, wet weather. It's going to be a high of 58 today, a high of 58 tomorrow, a high of 70 for the next week. This could have been much more damage from seedcorn maggot. But let's go over here where the ground is not tilled. Because this is the reason we got called out here. This here is something that I was not expecting to run into in Sussex County this year or any of the adjacent spots. This is slug damage. We've got chewed up cotyledons. We've got plants coming up with no cotyledons. This one lost a cotyledon. This one has been chewed off at the ground below the cotyledon. We've got some that look like they could have been hit by seedcorn maggot. Seedcorn maggots will do that, slugs will do that. This one right here has gotten chewed up by slugs. And then in my hand I've got a few that have also been chewed up by slugs. So this plant right here, let's see, oh, not that one. This one got chewed up underground and just drilled right through. This one right here got hit right as the bean was starting to curl its way out of the ground. Let's look down the line, look for some more. This is where soybeans are the most susceptible to damage from slugs. If they're working on the soil surface, they will hide right here and nip it right at that point. And like this plant here, the plant will not have the strength to uncurl itself. There's the feeding injury right there. Now overall, it doesn't look like we've lost much stand. But part of the problem is these beans are planted. It may be worse in other spots in the field. We haven't walked too far again because we're cold and wet. Best thing I think to do is to wait. Let's see what the stand looks like. We're not going to be able to spread anything or do any replanting or any field work for next couple of days, not with this weather coming in. So let's take a look and assess the stand. Part of the issue is if this were 15-inch soybeans, 15-inch beans can compensate for a lot of stand loss, but this is 30-inch soybeans. So now we might have a gap, a 2-3 foot gap between these rows where the slugs have hit the stand, and that's asking a lot from these other two rows to fill in all the way. 15-inch rows can compensate a lot more for smaller gaps or even bigger gaps. Let's take a look for the slugs. What's interesting is they're not easy to find, and they're not very big. There's one. This is a marsh slug. It's dark gray. It's not big. We've been sampling 15 other sites across the state that have had historic slug problems going into no-till production for soybeans, and we have found very few slugs. And I suspect this would have been one like that. We probably wouldn't have seen a whole lot of slugs in April from this site. These are not large slugs. Here's another one. Couple under residue. See, these are young slugs. They're not big at all. We had a very dry fall, and I think that put a big hurting on the slug population in general. I think this field just got very unlucky. Maybe it was planted at just the right time. There's another little one. I mean, these are little slugs. Or maybe it was just wet enough and cold. Let's see, this was probably planted about 2 weeks ago. And we got a lot of rain last week and cloudy weather when these plants were starting to come out of the soil. Combined with them being 30-inch rows, it makes the farmer nervous. And this is where an agronomist and some of the resources on evaluating stands are really important. And we'll put a link to those fact sheets in the comment section. One last thing I wanted to point out, look at these rows. The farmer did a great job of clearing residue away from the row. And that's generally recommended for slugs. Try to remove hiding spots. There's a couple of spots where we still have a bit of a seed wall. Right here is where a plant was, and it's just been completely destroyed. Seed slot is open. That acts like a slug superhighway, and they will hide in this seed slot during the this field. That seed slot is pretty closed. We've definitely seen fields, particularly up in Newcastle County, that have heavier soil, where the farms have a hard not closed well. We run into a lot of slug problems. Big slugs, I think if it were planted just a few days before or a few days after, we might not be here, but I think it just happened to be very unlucky combined with the 30-inch rows. But from my perspective, they did a lot of things right. They got rid of the residue. Yeah. Overall, slug populations are down this year. Tough little jerkwads.